Hey guys, over the next few weeks I'm going to take a look at some of the core mechanics of how to play Killteam. Well, the new version of Killteam's here, and with it comes a whole slew of new people wanting to join the hobby. That's a great thing for us as hobby enthusiasts. More people to play with, more ideas coming into the modelling community, more paint, more variation, everything. This is only a good thing. From experience with several of my own friends that are taking their first tentative steps into our world of tabletop wargaming using this new Killteam system, there are a few questions I thought now would be a really great time to help them answer. Terms and ideas that are second nature to some of us can be daunting and off-putting to new hobbyists. This is especially true in something like Killteam, where though the rule set is rather straightforward, there are still some hurdles that can really put a dampener on people's enjoyment. Before we jump into it, take a second and do me a big favour. If you're not already, hit that subscribe button. I make new videos every week covering my hobby journey from painting and modelling, 3D printing, design, world building, and of course, gaming. If that's something that you're interested in, and I guess you are if you're watching this, then do me a solid, leave me a thumbs up, and let your friends know about the channel. Now that's out of the way, first things first, let's jump into this. Okay, first thing to cover is the dice system. Killteam is a D6 based game. What does that mean? Well, it's very simple. Everything is determined on the roll of a standard 6-sided dice. If you picked up the Octarius box, then you'll have gotten some in there. But wait, I hear you say, I haven't got the Octarius box, what shall I do? Not to worry my friends, luckily the guys over at Dungeon Rolls got you covered. Head over to dungeonrolls.com and you'll find their ever expanding variety of dice that will fit any colour Killteam perfectly. What's even better, if you use the discount code FOS on checkout, you'll get an additional 10% off your first order for the next month. Thank you Dungeon Rolls for sponsoring this video. So we've looked at dice, and that couldn't be simpler, right? Standard D6, everybody knows what those are. So let's talk about movement and measuring. Much like traditional tabletop wargames, Killteam uses inches to measure distance. Now there's nothing to stop you from using a standard tape measure or ruler, but Killteam does use measuring tools. Now these came in the box if you've got the Octarius box set, or you can buy them separately from Games Workshop, or like I say, you can use a standard tape measure. Why are these tools useful though? Well, it makes it really easy to get into the action without the bulky tape measures. Sometimes when playing other games where you use a tape measure, I find it quite difficult to get into certain spaces. I end up knocking terrain, knocking miniatures, and it just takes me out of the experience a little bit. The handy dandy tools that come in the Killteam box just make it simple. It's straightforward, you've got it at hand, you're not looking around for anything, and certainly for newcomers it makes it pretty straightforward and simple. All the measurements in Killteam are denoted by 4 simple shapes that after a few games become second nature. The first is triangle, that's 1 inch. The second is a circle, and that's 2 inches. The third is a square, and that's 3 inches. And lastly, we have the pentagon, which is 6 inches. So, if your operative moves 2 circle, this means it moves a total of 4 inches. Don't worry, as you play it, it becomes second nature. And I assure you, it does make things easier further down the line. The final thing to note about movement is that movement is done from base to base of the model. Not from the centre of the base, from the rim. This is really important later on, so remember that one. So we've covered a fair bit already, but let's look at some of the terminology that we use inside the game that you might not be familiar with. Since we've just been talking about movement, let's start there. A couple of key phrases that you're going to come across are within range and only within range. What do these mean? Well, let's start with within range. What that means is that a base is within a specific distance of the other operative or weapon effect, whatever it may be. Any part of the base that's been affected is fine. A little bit of it, a lot of it, it doesn't matter, but it's got to be within range. Wholly within range means pretty much what it says on the tin. The entire base that's affected by whatever it is, be it a shot or an effect, has to be wholly within that. All of the base has got to be encompassed inside of whatever that distance is. Pretty simple, right? Factions are the different races that inhabit the Warhammer universe. From the pinnacle of the humanity that is the fearless adapters Astartes, to the utter alien hive mind that is the dreaded Tyranids. There are a myriad of factions that you can draw upon to pull your Killteam from, and you'll be sure to find something that appeals to your specific playstyle. Operatives is what we refer to as models or miniatures in the game. miniatures will be my operatives and your miniatures will be your operatives. These make up your kill team. Depending on the faction that you choose, you may find that your kill team can be made up of multiple, usually 2, fire teams. Whereas the elite warriors of the Astartes are made up of a single unit of operatives, other factions with less resilient troops have more operatives and theirs are split into different fire teams. Examples of this would be the veteran guard included in the Octarius box. Other Horde factions, like the Tyranids, also use smaller fire teams. It isn't always the case, however, that only Horde factions have fire teams. In fact, there are a number of examples, such as the Custodes or Death Guard, who are certainly not Horde factions by any stretch of the imagination, but they can be made much more flexible with the use of fire teams. For more information on this, I'd strongly recommend checking out the Kill Team Compendium, in which you'll find all currently legal kill teams and their constituent fire team options. Criticals, or crits, come in 2 varieties: critical hits and critical fails. Critical hits are a score of 6 on a d6. Critical fails are a score of 1. So basically, all they are is saying you got a 6 or you got a 1. But it just kind of sounds cooler too. Now, each game of Kill Team is split into 4 turning points. Each of these turning points contains a sequence of 3 phases that happen one after the other that make up that turning point. Those phases are the initiative phase, the strategy phase, and the firefight phase. Don't worry if that sounds daunting right now. I'll break that down what happens in each of those phases in the next video. But for right now, just remember that the game basically lasts 4 turns. Kill zones are where you play the game. In essence, if you're used to video game terminology, consider it a map. If you're a sports fan, it's a pitch, or an arena, or a ring. In short, it's that 22 by 30 inch area that we actually play the game in. It's the bounds of the map. Now, the last thing I want to cover in this video is the data card. The data card lets you know all you need to know about your operatives. These are the rules, the things that give each of the factions its own unique flavour. They let you know what weapons a unit can take and what special actions they might have. Now, they can look daunting at first, but don't worry about it, we'll break it down each section at a time and you'll see that it's really quite simple. Here we're going to use a Custodian Guard as an example. One of the Emperors of Mankind's personally crafted bodyguards, an absolute beast of an operative, in their shining gold artificer armour and standing over 10 feet tall with either Guardian Spears or Sentinel Blades tearing through the enemy ranks. These guys are really something. Of course, you're free to paint them however you see fit. You like another colour more than gold? Paint them that colour, it doesn't matter. Be sure to share your creations with us though down in the comments. I'd love to see what you guys come up with. Next to the operative picture, we have the stat block. Don't fret, this is really easy to understand and it's the foundation that the rest of the game is based on. M denotes movement. Notice how it says 3 circle. So in this case, the operative can move a total of 6 inch. But Wayne, why not just say 1 hexagon? Don't worry about that for now. Just trust me. We'll come to that in a later video. Just understand that your total movement is the number multiplied by the shape. The action point limit, or APL of the operative, lets you know how many action points that operative has. Action points let you take actions during your turn, such as move, shoot, or perform a unique action. Maybe like holding or capturing an objective. GA, this is group activation. Certain factions that are a horde type, like Tyranids for example, have a larger number of cannon fodder operatives. The GA value of greater than 1 means you have to activate and perform the action with multiple operatives at the same time, rather than just a single operative at the time, like the more elite factions. DF, or defense, this is the number of D6 that you use to check if you dodge, deflect, or mitigate an attack or action that would normally deal you damage. SV, that's your save value. Note the plus here though. What this means, in this example of the Custodian Guards, is that it needs to achieve a roll of 2 or more to mitigate damage. Let's take a look at an example. We need to make a defense roll. From looking at our stat block, we see that we have DF of 3 and an SV of 2+. Let's go ahead and roll those dice. Great. So we got a 4, a 2 and a 1. We rolled 3 dice because we have a DF of 3. What that means is that both the 2 and the 4 mitigate the attack because 2 is the minimum we need and, well, 4 is greater than 2. Either of those is a success for us. Simple, right? The only exception to this if we are defending against a critical roll, in which case the only defense is another critical hit. Lastly, we have wounds. This is the total number of damage points your operative can take before they are incapacitated. If an operative's wounds are reduced to 50% or below, then they are considered injured, and their movement stat is reduced by 1 circle, and their weapon skill and ballistic skill are reduced by 1 as well. We'll come on to that later, but for the moment, in our example of a custodian guard, our movement would become 2 circle, or a total of 4 inch, if our wounds reach 9 or below. Below the stats block, we have the weapon options for the operative. Much like the stat line, these numbers tell us what our operative is equipped with and any rules that we need to use them. You'll notice that at first we see 2 different types of symbols, the crosshairs and the cross swords. These denote ranged weapons that fire projectiles, the crosshairs, and melee weapons used in close combat, denoted by the crossed swords. Now, the name should be fairly obvious, it's the name of the weapon. A is attack. Much like our defense value, this is the number of dice we need to roll to make an attack. In this example, we see the Guardian Spear as an attack of 4, so we would use 4d6. The ballistic skill and weapon skill show us how good our operative is with the weapons that they're using. So in this example, the Guardian Spear, which is basically a glaive with a bolter on it, we see it as a 2+. As you might assume now then, we roll 4d6 and any value where we see a 2 or more is a hit. The D is damage. You see 2 numbers here. The leftmost number is the damage you do on a normal hit. So in our case, a 2, 3, 4 or 5 is a normal hit. And you would do a damage of 3. So let's try it out and see what we roll. Okay, so we got a 3, a 1 and a 6. So we have 3 dice over 2. The 2 3s we rolled would both do 3 damage, for a total of 6. But we rolled a 6 as well, right? That's a critical, remember? So we take the number on the right of the damage column, and that's the damage that gets inflicted if we roll a 6. Since we did, that does 5 damage. So a 5 and a 6 from the 2 previous gives us a total of 11 damage. SR, or Special Rules, lists any special rules that are always in effect for a given weapon. The exclamation mark denotes critical rules and apply only when a critical hit is made. In this case, the none that apply. Abilities are specific to that operative. They may be linked to a specific weapon choice you may or may not have chosen. So here you'll see the Storm Shield ability. This would only be applicable if we'd have equipped our Custodes with the Sentinel Blade and Storm Shield. Otherwise, if we'd have equipped our Custodes with a Guardian Spear, then it wouldn't be applicable. Next, we have the unique actions. These are actions the operative can perform and their associated cost in APL. In this case, the Custodes have no unique actions, so it's pretty simple. Next, we see the keyword sections. We'll cover this in greater depth in a future video, but for now, understand these help you understand the rules that apply and when to use them during your game. Finally, you'll see 4 symbols. These are specialisms that a specific operative type can choose in the narrative version of the game. In this basic introduction series, we won't be looking at these too much. If you want me to go into the narrative play version of the game, which is the version of the game that I most prefer to play, then let me know down in the comments and I'll put something together and we can chat about that more in depth. But for now, what you need to know is there's 4 types of specialism currently in the game. Combat, Staunch, Marksman and Scout. So, from this quick overview, you should now have a pretty good idea of the very basics of what the game is, from what the dice are to some of the terms used, and a good overview of how the data card is set up to use for your operatives. Next week, I'll take a look at mission structure, TAC-op cards, how to set up the game board, and one of the things that is really confusing to a lot of new people, the line of sight rule. Be sure to subscribe if you've not already, and do let me know down in the comments. If you're already playing Killteam, what do you think about it? Do you think it's better than the old version? Is this your introduction into the Warhammer universe? I'd love to know what you're thinking. Okay guys, well, until next week, there's only one thing left to say. If you're going to do crack, make sure it's plastic. See ya!